Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great, coming back with you today to talk a little bit more about the Nikon D600. As you remember, about 3 or 4 weeks ago I did a preview video on the D600 and I kind of shared some of my thoughts on that, kind of my initial thoughts on the camera, and showed you guys all the controls and everything. I'm not going to go over the controls and all that again because I did that in the preview video, so definitely check the link in the description so that way you guys can check out that video first, where I go over all the controls and all that. But today I want to talk to you a little bit about my impression of using the camera after I spent some more time with it. I took it to a wedding and I used it as my second camera and was able to get quite a lot of shots with it that way. It did pretty good. I was actually very, very impressed with it. A couple of the things that I thought would be a really, really big deal ended up not being such a big deal after all. The biggest thing I made a big deal about in the preview video was the focusing system. Yes, it is 39 points, and yes, it's the same or nearly the same focusing system as the one found in the D7000. But as I pointed out in that preview video, having that 39 point autofocus system in a full frame camera basically means that all 39 of those points end up being more centralized around the middle part of the frame, and so you don't quite have the coverage at the very extreme edges. If you're like me and you find yourself shooting at very, very wide apertures, then focusing and recomposing is not always the best option because you get out of focus shots. Now if you're stopping down a lot, if you're shooting at 5.6 f8 and you're doing landscapes or something like that, it might not be as big of a deal. Or if you're shooting portraits in the studio. But if you're like me and you like to shoot at f2.8 and f4 and even wider apertures, then focusing and recomposing is not really a good option. So not having the extra points at the edge of the frame, can matter. During my time with the D600 though, I didn't find it to be as big of a deal. If I'm taking like a portrait with a 70-200 lens or something like that, chances are what I'm shooting is going to be more in the middle of the frame anyway. However, at the wedding I did use my 14-24 lens a couple times on it, and I was trying to frame something at the very, very extreme edge of the frame, and I couldn't quite get the focus points over. So I definitely noticed it a couple times. But all in all, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it would be. One other thing that I kind of mentioned about the D600 in the preview video was its video capabilities. And I was kind of talking about how on the D800 and D4, you can actually change your f-stop while you're still in live view. You don't have to switch out of live view, change f-stop, and then go back into live view again. On that D800 and D4, you can be in live view mode and just immediately change the f-stop and have that change happen immediately and not have to leave live view. One thing that I am hearing, and I guess we'll all see if there's any truth to this, I've been really keeping an eye out. A lot of people are speculating that Nikon is going to actually release a firmware update that will allow the D600 to change f-stop while still in live view. So if that actually ends up happening, that would be completely awesome. It's definitely conceivable that something like that could happen by just a simple firmware update. As far as I know, there's no hardware limitation that would prevent the D600 from behaving like the D4 and actually allowing you to change f-stop in live view. So if that comes about, that would be very, very nice, and that would address that concern that I had. I actually have already made this video once, and then it occurred to me that I'd better do it again because there's one thing that a couple people have asked me about, and no doubt if you've been researching the D600, you've probably seen this online, and that is the supposed dust problem. Well, I say supposed dust problem, or suggested dust problem. That's what I thought it was up until recently. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. Even on the camera that I tested, after, well, actually with my brief time with it, I ended up having to wet clean it twice. So yeah, there's definitely something going on there. This is one thing I don't particularly care for about Nikon, and that's the fact that whenever something goes wrong, they don't really say anything about it, you know. But yeah, there is definitely something going on. I'm still gonna keep on investigating that, and see what I can come up with. Maybe Nikon will tell us something more about that. I will say though, regardless of which manufacturer's camera it is, I always kind of have this personal rule of waiting a little while before before a new camera comes out. I let it stay out a little while before I end up actually buying it myself. And it's because of things like this. You guys probably remember I was very, very excited when the D600 came out, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that they announced this like a couple days ago, and now I've got it in my hand today. I don't remember if I actually said this or not, but I think if I didn't say it, I was definitely thinking it. And that's the fact that, wow, I'm glad that it's come out so fast, but I wonder if there's any issues with these since they came out so fast. Well, as it turns out, looks like this dust thing is definitely becoming somewhat of an issue. So, yeah, I kind of wish maybe it hadn't come out so fast now. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some sample images and kind of go over those with you. And I'll give you more about my feelings about its overall image quality. If you don't even want to watch the rest of the video to see all that, I'll tell you right now, I was very, very impressed with the image quality. It's basically like my D700 as far as high ISO noise is concerned, but with a little bit less noise and twice the resolution. So that's basically what I think about it. I absolutely love the sensor in the camera. For my use though, I will be going more than likely with the D800 because I am a bit spoiled by the 51-point autofocus system. However, I can see sometime in the future, I can see myself getting the D600 as a second body, probably to maybe possibly to replace the D700, and then I'll have like the 800 and the 600, I guess. And I figured it'd be very, very nice to have for those times when I want to do video. Well, I guess I have the D7000 for that, but anyways, yeah, I have too many cameras. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the sample images, and I'll give you some feedback on that. Okay, I'm not going to spend just a whole long time looking at these images, but I did want to give you guys a quick idea of what the camera is capable of. At the wedding, I used it, well, this is one of the shots I wanted to use it on for sure. Just a larger group shot because I knew that having the higher 24 megapixel resolution would come in handy. Anyways, let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at this one. This is shot with two off-camera speed lights at ISO 400, f8, and 1/125th of a second with the 24 to 70 2.8 Nikkor lens. So very, very good opportunity to see some sharpness. f8 should be perfect for that sort of thing. But as you can see, it did a very, very good job of capturing everyone's face in good detail, which is just what you want for a shot like this, particularly if it ends up being a larger print or something along those lines. Very, very well. Yeah, I mean, I keep on referring to this camera. I keep on kind of, mentioning my D700 in the same breath as this camera. And that's pretty much what it reminds me of as far as the quality of the sensor. It's exactly like the D700 sensor, it's just twice the resolution, which is very, very impressive. It wasn't long ago that we had to choose between resolution and high ISO performance. Back with cameras like the D3X, which is 24 megapixels, you got that resolution, but you didn't get any sort of high ISO at all. And that's not the case with this camera at all, as you'll see as we continue on through these images. Okay, let's see, what's going on here? F4 and ISO 400, 1/60th of a second. So yeah, pretty much just a standard shot. Nice candid, on-camera flash here, bounced right off the ceiling. nothing terribly complicated is going on in this particular shot. Yeah, you get the idea. So nothing particularly special there. Having a lot of dynamic range is a good thing, especially when you're talking about weddings where you might overexpose a wedding dress a little bit. I mean, you've got someone in black, you've got someone in white, you've got varied skin tones oftentimes, and so getting the exposure 100% perfect without getting something a little blown out in camera is oftentimes next to impossible. So having the ability to pull a little bit of detail in the highlights, that can help out a whole lot. So that's something that was the case with this camera. Let's see here. Moving on to some high ISO stuff. This is the Nikon 50mm 1.4G lens, and let's see, I was sitting at f2 here at 1/125th of a second, and I'm at 6400 ISO, so I'm pretty much just pushing the limits of everything at this point. Anyways, if we zoom in here, obviously there's going to be a little bit of texture here, but not a lot. You still see some pretty good detail here. I mean, you guys know I'm not into shooting like test charts and stuff. I like to see what a camera can do in real life. Overall, I was impressed. Honestly, there's not many cameras that I would shoot above 3200 ISO consistently anyway, and this camera actually falls into that range. For most of my shooting, I don't find myself having to go that high, using fast lenses and such. If I were consistently having to shoot above that ISO, I'd probably go for a D4 or something. But for what I do, most of everything, I'd say probably 85 or 90% of what I do can be done at 3200 ISO or lower. And of course, this camera can still give you a good option. I mean, it can still give you an option of shooting at 6400 if you absolutely have to. So let's see. Let's just take a quick peek at what I did to this file, which I don't think was a whole lot. Okay, let's just go back to before here. Basically, I cropped, which once again, having higher resolution to actually crop in, and change things can be a good thing. Although I doubt this picture is going to end up getting printed very large at all. But that's always a good thing. So I did that. And of course there's just basically some white balance adjustments going on here. There's the crop. I pushed the exposure up just a little bit. Looks like I pushed the exposure up by 1/3 of a stop. So I just brightened things up just a bit there. So yeah, very, very good actually. And let's see, here's a few other high ISO shots. A lot of people have flamed me in the comments because I'm always talking about how I hate tripods. I will go ahead and say that I hate tripods for the type of shooting that I do. Obviously, if I were going to go out and take a landscape shot, do any type of long exposure, obviously I would use a tripod for that. But that's not the thing that's not the sort of thing I primarily do. I primarily take a lot of portraits and a lot of candid stuff. And for what I do, a tripod simply won't work. Therefore, for what I do, I hate tripods. But on a shot like this, obviously this is not a shot you'd be able to get a tripod out for. For candids at weddings and such, you're much, much better off raising the ISO, putting on your fast lenses, and going with it. So there we are once again, 1/60th of a second, f2, and 6400 ISO. So pretty much the same settings as the previous shot. Looks like I almost just camped out on those settings. Although on this particular frame I was shooting at 2.8. Still at a 60th of a second and still shooting the 50mm 1.4G Nikon. Lovely beach ball there. Okay, here we go. So yeah, as you can see, once again, lots and lots of detail. The focusing system was still pretty spot on, although it's a bit, AF point deficient. in comparison to the higher Nikon cameras, that is. But all in all, very good. Hopefully at some point, maybe at some point, we'll see a higher resolution camera, maybe a camera with this sensor in like a D700 or D800 style body. I like highly doubt that, but anyways, it would be cool if that were the case, because I love everything about this camera. I just wish it had the better controls of the higher end cameras. But I still think that you can't possibly go wrong with it. I can't think of anything that's overwhelming bad thing about it, honestly. Just some other little small things that you have to consider, like the AF point and control differences. But all in all, it's a very, very solid camera. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to write me in the comments below. And I'm sure I'll be spending some more time shooting with this camera in the future, and I'll report back. And I'll also report back when I find out something about the whole sensor dust thing. But until next time, this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great, signing off.